Paul Sargent.
And I'm Carl Sargent. We are brothers, of course, and our father worked here at the former Naval Air Station. We grew up in Ballard and went to Ballard High School. Both Paul and I were actually in the Navy, Naval Air Reserve, in the late 60s,
early 70s.
The 1970s when I joined also. And our father was in the Navy for over 30 years and worked here at Sandpoint, the old Sandpoint Naval Air Station, a long time ago.
And he was commissioned by Captain Johnson, who went back to the East Coast to get funding for a CB hangar here for a training facilities and equipment facility for the 13th Naval District.
There were a lot of CB stations around the country, but none that had the heavy equipment. And so he, for $2,500, my father started the Navy CB hangar, Hangar 27, which is at the north end of the lake, actually the last hangar down by the lake. And he was given $2,500 to start this CB hangar with a dirt floor and no equipment and just a very little bit of money. And he begged, borrowed, and stole everything he could to get this hangar up and running back then. In between years, when he started the hangar, he actually went into recruiting also at Lake Union for a few years, and then came back to the hangar after that. But they got all the heavy equipment in there, and they had CBs they were all volunteers that came in originally, but then they housed as many as 500 CBs in training. And they did training not only here on the base, but also out in the community sometimes.
Yeah. And in the community, they did some service work, particularly at a number of golf courses on the north and the east side. And in payment for their help, they allowed the team to come out and train for war games. And Colonel and I were involved in a couple of them. They invited us to come along, and it was usually at night, and they would have a good team and an enemy team in an enemy camp, and they would try to infiltrate. And they actually did a lot of training, particularly for Vietnam.
And we had M1 rifles and blanks and smoke grenades and all kinds of things. It was so scary. And the neighbors, finally they had to stop because the police would show up and wouldn't understand what all the shooting was about. So it was, but they also worked here on the base and worked on the airfield here and a lot of the groundwork here and pavement, streets and roads. And it was really a nice training facility for CBs coming in.
And Colonel and I numerous times came over to the base to go down to the beach for picnics and just to go swimming. We go to the movie theaters and the gym, play basketball, go to the pool, go to the golf course, which was at the southwest corner of the base. There's a little golf course there we used to play all the time.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
And as kids, we'd come over all the time during high school and play basketball and use the gym and things and go to the movies. And we'd go down to my dad's hangar, and he always wanted us to get up on the heavy equipment, the graders and front-end loaders and things, and learn how to do that so that maybe we could work during college, but we never really took him up on that. So
probably a mistake.
It was a mistake, yeah. But they had a lot of equipment and tools and all sorts of great equipment to train the Navy CBs on. In 1960, about 1962, after the hangar got started, my dad and one of the enlisted men started a Navy drill team, and it was a 13th Naval District drill team. And the drill team comprised of anywhere between 8 to 15 Navy CBs, and they did drills, the Queen Anne drill they called it, where they would twirl the rifles, the M1 rifle, and they used the actual rifles and put bayonets on the end. And they would perform at parades and different things around the city, with my dad being out in front with the sword, giving hand signals with the sword to tell the CBs what to do, how to mark.
No verbal commands, it was all by sword.
All by sword. And it wound up being a really great drill team because they performed in over 175 not only parades but special events.
They opened up they performed at the opening of the Kingdom.
And all kinds of special events, funerals, different Navy events that went on, and color guards. They were always invited to come and perform, and they looked really sharp. They had leggings on and white helmets and with the rifles, and they were really a smart-looking group. And they really had fun together. They really bonded together. They worked at in the hangar, and then at evenings they would come out and practice in front of Hangar 27, where there's a Magnuson Park, north end there. And then there was a Chiefs Club, enlisted men's club called Club 56, which is used to be right next to, on the north side of Hangar 27. And after they would drill for a couple hours, they would go over to the club, and dance and have dinner and drink a few drinks. But they really had a lot of fun together. They went out on weekends when they would do a performance somewhere, even down in Portland, Oregon. They did the Rose Festival every year. They would get motel rooms and just have a lot of fun together. And the wives would always come along.
Yeah. They were always in the Torchlight Parade here every year, the Seafair Parades.
Seafair Parades, right.
Yeah. And they actually used the real M1 rifles. They weren't the hollowed out ones. They were the full 9-pound M1 rifle that they used and drove. And a couple of the particularly exciting drills they did was one they had, I can't remember the name of it, the suicide drill, where they would line up in columns. And Dad would walk down the center of the column, and they would have their rifles, and they would twirl them. And he had a standing bet that anybody that could take his hat off without nicking him, he would buy them a fifth of their choice. And
one guy did. But
Yeah.
one of the other drills they did is when they came in front of like the judges standing parades and things, they would stop and do a little performance for, I think they had 3 or 4 minutes. They would get in a circle, and my dad would stand in the middle, and these guys would put their blindfolds on and do the same kind of twirling around him. And
they would set up with the bayonets about 6 inches from him. And then they had the blindfolds on, and there's 4 of them. He was in the center, and they would twirl the rifles around.
I don't think they ever hit him during a parade or performance, but in practice, a lot of times he went through 3 dress uniforms. And we have a photo of one of them where he's sticking his hand through the uniform where they the bayonet sliced his uniform up. He said one time he got hit on the head so hard that he hurt for 3 days afterward. One of the bayonets just banged him right on the head. But it was real, all the officers here on the base and a lot of people in the community had good write-ups in the Seattle Times and newspapers, and the officers were really proud of the unit as they went around for all those many years. They performed for, I think it was 17 years. And like I said, lots of parades and 239 parades, I guess it was, that they did. And he became a Master Chief, highest level for enlisted, in 1969, and remained at the hangar until he retired in, 1978, I believe it was, when he retired.
Our dad was known as LG Sargent or Sarge. Yeah.
Everybody called him Sarge.
Yeah.
Called you Sarge when he was in school, and called me Little Sarge when I was in Ballard High School as well.
Sarge, yeah.
But first he joined the Navy in 1944 and was on a couple of different ships, one called the Arlington and Bixer, and he was a fire control operator. And then after the war he went out, was involved in the Seattle transit system. He drove buses and was an inspector for a long time. And then in 1950 he went back enlisted in the CB Reserve and was an equipment office operator. And then after that time, then again in 1960, Captain Johnson was the guy that went to Washington, D.C., and he got this idea of getting this hangar going. So at that point in 1960, I think a lot of the Navy officers and enlisted people were about ready to be discharged because there wasn't a lot of activity and things going on. So this was really great that my dad was able to stay in the Navy and get this hangar going. Otherwise, he may have gone back into construction work or something else for a number of years.
Probably it's in the mid to late 60s we would be coming over here quite frequently to the commissary. I mean, Dad and Mom shopped there, so we would come and tag along.
Help them. Yeah.
We'd go down to the beach, and we did have dates occasionally down there with us, and all of our family and friends would come with us. And it's a great place to swim, great place to have barbecues. We had a great time.
They smoked open pits. They barbecued salmon, and it was really fantastic.
Yeah.
As much as you can eat back in those days. And we always had to wait at the airstrip for the plane. Sometimes a plane would be coming through, and so we'd always, as kids, it was kind of fun to watch that plane come right in front of you and land, and then we'd go on to the beach. I remember taking the transit bus from Ballard over here quite often. Sometimes it was by myself because I was a basketball player at the high school, and would come over, and you'd come with us too a lot of times, and we would take the bus back and forth during the day, especially in the summertime, and work out in the gym. And once in a while we'd run into some sailors there and have a lot of fun playing as a group. So it was a really great facility for us.
Yeah, and then they had a swimming pool, and of course we were in that a lot. We just
Yeah.
loved to swim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember they had a locker room there that we could change in, and I don't remember much about the pool. Do you remember?
Not a great deal. It's still
It was a small pool,
Yeah.
but it was just fun to get in the water and swim, and everything was free, of course, because we were a dependent. We had our dependent cards to be checked at the main gate when you came through. You had to show your dependent card to get on the base. And the movie theater was fun too. I think they may have charged 50 cents or something for the movie. And they would have top-rated movies,
yeah.
I think.
Double
a double feature sometimes, and would never be packed, but there were some sailors in there watching.
And then we had the golf course, so we were always on. Also, we spent a lot of time over here.
Yeah, we really did.
Yeah.
And then we'd run down and see our dad at the hangar. He was working, of course, but it was always fun to go down and see what new tools they had or what they were doing. And then we would either drive our own cars or take the bus back home.
That's one of the reasons they did the work out on the golf courses and had the war games, as they call them, out there at night to train some of the people that were going to be deployed over into Vietnam.
Yeah, I remember a couple of the CBs that were part of the team had come back from Vietnam and were stationed here. But a lot of them were preparing to go. And so they really did need the training, and it came in really helpful for them as they went over. And Paul and I, it was about the same time Vietnam was still going on that we joined the Naval Air Reserve as well about that time. And then I did my boot camp down at Alameda and stayed there a little bit and over at Oak Harbor. And then I think
I had my boot camp here on base.
Here on base.
And I don't remember too much about it. I know they did have a rifle range.
We remember the mess hall. The mess hall.
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember where the mess hall was.
Yeah.
And then I believe at the pool they had the high dive. The dive was about almost hit your head on the ceiling, and you had to jump off. And
Yeah, it
the
was
water
probably 30 feet, I would guess. And they made us learn how to jump off of that with a life vest on. And of course, once you lose your breath as you go down because you're not you've got accustomed to doing it.
Shaking,
and then you hit the water and you don't know which way is up because you get turned around and upside down.
It was like jumping off a ship, I guess, is what the training was for.
Yeah.
In case you had to. I think the thing that stood out for me was just going and watching the drill team practice in front of Hangar 27 down at this north end, and being able as a young person to go into that 56 club with the sailors. And of course they didn't serve drinks, but we could have dinner up until I think it was 8 or 9 o'clock, then we had to leave. But we felt pretty good going actually into a bar and a restaurant with the guys, all the sailors, and they were hooting and hollering and having, they had a lot of fun. And even at the parades that we went to, we would go into restaurants with them, and they just had so much fun.
Well, the only thing I remember one time being down swimming when it was a little chilly and it was very windy, and the waves were they were big.
Oh,
but
on the lake,
we were still out there swimming in them.
Yeah, they had a raft out on the water.
Yeah.
They swim out to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it got pretty rough sometimes. The water was cold all the time.
Yeah.
I do remember one of the special things was that we always went to those picnics that they arranged because of the salmon. The salmon was absolutely fabulous.
Yeah.
It was over, like an open pit barbecue, and it was just, that's one of the things, because you could eat as much as you wanted. And as teenagers, we just gobbled up several plates. We went back several times. So we always remembered that. That was really fun. We are so glad that they're restoring a lot of the buildings and hangars. It's really nice.
And putting them to good use. And the park's nice. There's a lot of trails. The beaches are still there. Yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, it's really nice. I would hate to see the buildings tore down or something happen to them, because it's just really historic. There's history here. And the naval base lasted a long time and was very popular in the area.
Yeah, it was a pretty well-used airfield.
There was a plane called the Neptune, which was a bomber that could actually land. The strip was long enough where it could land here. And it was loud. Yeah. That's one thing we remembered, is the loudness of that particular plane coming in. And I don't remember what other planes came in, but Paul and I as teenagers liked to see that one come in every once in a while. Yeah. And the base itself, it felt really important at that time. I mean, it was a Navy base, because there were a lot of bases in Seattle, Pier 91 and Oak Harbor and then Lake Union, and this was a really important naval base. And as you came in through the gates, sometimes there was a little line of cars. They checked ID when they came in, and there was a security officer there. And so it felt really important to be here and part of being able to get on the base. Because there weren't a lot of civilians on the base. You had to be dependent of a Navy personnel. And so it was we felt really important to be able to come on the base. Yeah, it was really fun. This is our dad's 13th Naval District drill team. Some of the things that they used during all their parades and some of the awards that they won. This is the sword that he used when he marched in the parade to give commands for the team as to what to do as they're marching. One of the bayonets, they chromed everything. They chromed the rifles and the bayonets on the rifles after a number of years.
Yeah, and they used the actual M1 rifles. They weren't the hollowed-out rifles that they use nowadays. And 9-pound rifle.
Yeah, and in the old days, they used to, as they're marching in the parades, they would actually fire the rifles. But it got to a point where, for safety reasons, the district decided that they needed to plug the rifles and not shoot them anymore. Actually, it scared people. This is one of the awards that my dad won, and it was given by the drill team in 1971 for some of his work. And they have 170 trophies and things that they've won over the years for all their parades and special performances. This is the banner they used out in front of the drill team. And
and then this is one of the pillows that our mother made just to commemorate the Seabees. We had a number of things like this around the house.
And I believe they made this as well. My mom had something to do with that. She made a big blanket with the CB emblem on it, and it was very attractive.
Yeah, fortunately the wives were very supportive of the guys in the drill team, because it was a big commitment for them.
Yeah, every weekend during the summer months they would travel to Idaho, Oregon, up to Vancouver, and all over Washington doing these parades and special events.
And then they had practices over here.
They practiced over here in front of Hangar 27.